Good afternoon. This is the Rumble Right Dad with another review. And if you would be so inclined, if this is any value to you, please like and subscribe. Let's get into it. Today, we're going to be looking at Netflix Spellbound, which is perhaps the most toxic movie that I've ever let into my family's household and my family's life. Let's get into why exactly this is a problematic film to let into your home. First of all, it's featuring Rachel Zegler, which is the one who took down the Snow White franchise on behalf of Disney and is setting the pace as possibly the worst marketer for anyone to be the lead role in a major movie because of some of the horrible things she said about her audience, about the movies that she's been in, and about the ways that she disrespects the people and the people who are ultimately paying her bills to go see these movies. First of all, as parents, we're all sick of this, but they make the adults in this movie out to be complete and utter doofuses. They make the parents actually fight constantly, turn into monsters, and demonstrate that their marriage together is actually a piece of world-class nonsense grenade that needed to be exploded in order for the family to somehow get better. And so this movie, Spellbound from Netflix, ultimately shows divorce as being the pinnacle good that could come out of the marriage that this child is exposed to. It's about a princess named Eliana, I think, who goes through this adventure where she has to take the lead. She has to be the one to demonstrate to her parents what's right and good. And then ultimately that leads them to becoming monsters and turning to divorce to try to settle their differences. As with most kids' movies nowadays, there's a highly feminized theme that's going on where the young girl, of course, is the hero. There's a lack of overall masculine roles or any masculine that's positive, masculinity that's positive within the framework of this. And so 0 out of 10 for having realism or any realistic display of even the interplay between the two sexes about what could be good about having a male who would be strong in any scenario, let alone the father that's within the movie. Of course, he gets represented as the most world-class doofus out of everyone in the film, which is disappointing, but to be expected. The sad part is that those messages do incur a certain temperature within the lives of our kids, and they don't do it unintentionally. All of this has been placed in there very intentionally to give a message across. And of course, it is that the men of the household are ultimately not good, and at best are just willing doofuses in this adventure. Because the movie's called Spellbound, of course, there is some mysticism, some Gnosticism, and some spells that take place. Not really of a large concern in our household, but I can understand people who might feel a little itchy about that. Also, you have to wonder behind the scenes how many of these Hollywood celebs are actually doing some of this stuff or attempting some of this Gnostic rituals within their own lives. So also, on the scale of spiritual discernment and being protective spiritually, Spellbound gets a 0 out of 10 for me. The gigantic moral problem that comes about in this movie, and the reason why it should not be shown within your household, is because it puts divorce as being an acceptable good. The whole entire theme of the movie is that this young girl would be better off if her parents simply dissolved their marriage. And I've personally been in a marriage, in a household where marriage was dissolved, as my parents broke up and divorced when I was still within the house. And that is not something that comes without consequences. Of course, it's not what is taught biblically to be the utmost good for a marriage. Marriage is ultimately such an interweaving of two lives that this is just an unrealistic depiction at best. But at worst, it's actually attempting not just to make kids who come from divorced households feel better, but to make these children ultimately think that that's okay and that they can even press that ball forward in their parents' relationship, saying, why wouldn't it be better if you weren't together anymore? As men and the leaders of our household, it's our job to protect not just the well-being of our child's physical body, but also their spiritual and mental wellness. And allowing this type of trash to come through Netflix into my house would be me being an unwitting an unrighteous leader within my household. So ultimately, my kids have seen this movie. We reported throughout the movie what the messages were that were inappropriate, and it was between my wife and I a bit of a conversation to try to get our kids to understand why the themes of this movie were inappropriate. So, as the man, as the leader of my household, and ultimately the one who's responsible first and foremost for the protection of my kids, I would not put this movie on again. And if I were a parent who hasn't seen it, I wouldn't put it on at all. So, Spellbound gets a woke score of 10 out of 10 for a lot of reasons, not just the divorce, but that was simply enough. Do not show this movie in your household.